Welcome to the Newcomers Podcast, where I explore what it means to be an immigrant. Today, I'm speaking with Saïd, the pastry nerd. You'll understand why I call him the pastry nerd when you start listening to his story. But I think this was a great conversation for me because we tackled something I see a lot. The immigrant is not a monolith. Everybody's different. For Saïd, his parents moved from Comoros to Paris. He was born in Paris, and then he moves from Paris to Canada. And you know what? His father's an immigrant. He's an immigrant, but the experiences are different. Social status, language, education, every single thing, all those things define how his journey and his dad's journey would differ. But you see people who keep saying, "Oh, this is who the immigrant." No, everyone is different. But let's get to the story, please. So, Comoros to Paris, but you're a kid. You don't. It doesn't mean anything to you. It's just mom and dad are saying, "Let's go somewhere else," and you move. And then Paris to Canada. What do you like? I feel like I want to kind of start off with I'm going to deep end right now, which is, do you understand your parents better now?
Um, so it's interesting because I was born in Paris, so I didn't even have any
Oh,
experience of immigration. No, it's okay, it's okay. I didn't have any experience of immigration. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, oh, I'm here, and my parents are telling me that they moved from Comoros and that it was difficult, but you don't get it because for you, you are born in the country. That's the only country you know. You don't really understand, but it's only when I moved to Canada that I started to think, oh wow, like I cannot imagine that they had to go through uh everything that is related to administration, and it is anything that is related to job searching. And especially because it's harder for me to understand because they moved to Paris. My father moved to Paris without a job, without university education, my mother as well. So they both were in a different situation than me, where I moved to Canada speaking the both official languages with a job, um, and with a PhD. So the situation is quite different, but at the same time, I understand more just the fact that you go in a place where you have your friends, you have your family, you have everything that you know, and all of a sudden you're almost by yourself, right?
If you really reflect on that, like I think and I like how you call that out, that thing, because it's so true. Like that, the fact, the education, social status, language barriers, like this, they are all different. They're so we tend to assume that they're just there, but they're not just there. They're massive barriers that either help or limit us in how we engage with our new society. And then, when you reflect back on your father's journey and your journey, was any of that helpful in just kind of understanding some of the things you're seeing? Was it helpful in helping you approach it with more empathy or patience for yourself? Because I think one thing about an immigrant is that we're always in a hurry. Like, we're in a hurry to kind of get going. I want to settle down. I want to get a job. I want to get a house. I want to do a ton of things. But if you reflect back on your father's journey and your journey, did that help you at all, or did you still get into the immigrant checklist thing mentality?
Um, I think it helped, but not so much. I think I also really wanted to settle as quickly as possible to have everything ready to have all the furnitures. It's you know what I mean, right? When you move to a country, you're like, okay, I don't have a couch, I don't have a mattress, I don't have a TV, I don't have anything. So what should I do now? And but it still helped because I remember that for my father, like before he was stable and settled, probably took until I was 14, something like that. So 14 years. So 10 to 14 years. It takes a lot of time to settle into a new country, to get your habits, to just get it going. So it helped me a little bit. I think it helped me yeah, I think it also helped me understand him more and how difficult it must have been with him. But yeah, for me, I was a little bit nicer and more to myself because I knew what it was like for him.
Yeah. But gosh, like you're not helping my mind. I've been here 4 years. So when you tell me it takes 10 to 14 years, my heart, like,
I mean, I think so. I've been here for 10 years. I moved from Paris 10 years ago, and I think that I started to feel comfortable, at least okay, after 6 to 7 years. Um, And 10 years now is the time where I'm like, okay, I speak the language fluently. I'm comfortable. I know where to go. I know how to interact with people because it's one of the things that people don't tell you sometimes about immigration is that the difference of cultures.
yes,
And even France and Canada, which seem like very similar culture, they're actually not really the same.
yeah. Let's kind of stay on that point a bit because like that thing about cultural nuances, I feel like especially because Canada is a very interesting country in the sense that Canada doesn't people in Canada don't tell you when you're not doing the thing. People just look at you and make a judgment call and ignore you. It's frustrating to be honest. I'm like, just say to me, this is how I should do this. They're like, no, you should. I like, if you don't tell me, how do I?
I got into arguments, let's say, with my Canadian friends because sometimes I will be telling them exactly what you said. I will be like, please tell me if I do something wrong. I, and I know that from their point of view, they will be like, no, we don't want to tell you something bad. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable. We want to be polite. We want to be nice to you. But then I would say, but how will I ever learn that I'm
Yeah.
not doing the right thing? Or for example, sometimes with my English, I will say things and I would not say it correctly and nobody will say anything. And it will only be after, I don't know, 2, 3 years, people will be like, that's not how you say that actually. The accent is not right. I do not understand what you're saying. But yeah, whereas the French culture, oh,
Yeah.
they don't.
They tell you.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite, but it's too much as well. Like if you're not pronouncing something correctly, they're like, no, that's not how you say it. That's not how you say it. Repeat again. Repeat again.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's
So it's too much. It's too much. I'm not saying it's good. I would like something in between, right?
yeah.
Because French people are very direct, very in your face. Comorian people as well, like my parents' country, they're also direct. They would not, just pretend and say use 12 sentences to say no, like in Canada.
10 years in, do you still think that I mean, I know you said you feel more comfortable right now, but if you had to just kind of put that comfort on a level of 1 to 10, how
Mhm.
comfortable are you right now after 10 years?
After 10 years, I would say I would say 8 to 9. Yeah, 8.5, let's say. Yeah.
That's good. That's good, actually. So now, do you now pick up all the? Because I think the thing about Canada that I'm trying to learn is all this the unspoken truths, the unspoken nuances, the things that the looks that tell you that no, that wasn't done well. Can you pick them up yet now, or do some still fly over your head?
Um, I think some of them might fly over my head. For example, one of the things I'm not really great at, so I'm not really great at writing emails where I say no without saying no because I'm not supposed to be uh, because I have to be polite, right? So I understand those emails now. Like I would read an email, very long email saying no. I would be like, okay, I think that person is telling me no, but without really saying it. This I get, but I don't know how to write these emails. So you know what I mean?
Gosh.
like the female when you say when someone is asking you, do you want to go out or not, and you'll be like, hey John, today I'm very busy and I don't know how I'm gonna do this and this and this, and but they never say no. That's the kind of female I'm not great at.
Gosh, I love this country. Just tell me no.
Tell me no, it's okay, I'm not gonna die, just tell me no.
Yeah, just tell me no. I don't think we can do this. Oh, I don't know. Like, and it's right because back in Nigeria too, we can be very. I feel like Nigeria we're a bit in between. Sometimes we can dance around the bush, but then we can also be very direct and in your face and just say to you as is. Sometimes rudely though. I mean, I do think we have a couple of cultures that don't do that. You know, but coming to Canada was this is my first time in indirect culture, and then it doesn't help that I've worked with Americans a lot, so it's
Mm.
always a very huge switch for me because like the Americans just say to you, "Oh, dude, that's not good. That doesn't work. No, I'm not doing that with you." Canadians are like, "Ah, yeah, well, it looks great. Maybe we could put the color red on it. Yo, go put the color red on it."
Now that I think about it, actually, Comorian have some kind of indirect way to say no. They will say inshallah, which means if God wants.
Okay, that's hilarious.
So if they don't want to say something, if they don't want to go somewhere, or if they're not sure if this is going to happen or not, if they want to say no without saying no, they defer to God almost, right? They're like, inshallah, maybe it's gonna work, maybe it's not gonna work, inshallah. So they also have that kind of indirect culture, but most of the time they'll be direct as well.
Yeah. Okay, there's something else I want to explore with you. And it's a pretty interesting topic because, and I think for me with you, it's actually really interesting because this is to talk about. People say the immigrant, so it's almost like as if the immigrant is some monolith, or just so in at best it's all the European immigrant or the black immigrant, and just even listening to your story about your dad who moved to from Comoros to Paris, who's an immigrant, and then you're his son, and then you move from Paris to Canada. You're an immigrant, but two of you, same genes, same people, entirely different experiences, entirely different immigrant stories, entirely different perspectives of what immigration means. And I just want to kind of explore that with you a bit about that misconception. If you've come across it, any thoughts on that? And like because it's always such an interesting conversation where people, kind of just paint everyone with one brush and go like, "Oh, you all are this," and I'm like, "No, that's not how it works."
Yeah, I also think that it's very interesting to see how people see immigration as a monolith, especially because when you look at, for example, people tend to say a lot, "Oh, African immigrants, they're coming to our country and they're like this and like that." And I'm like, which African immigrants? Which are you talking about? East Africa or West Africa? And even if you look at East Africa, like someone from Ethiopia is not the same as someone from Comoros. It's not the same as someone from Rwanda. It's so different. We have kind of similar culture, but still very different. We cannot understand each other. We don't eat necessarily the same food.
Yeah,
And even the difference is even bigger between someone from East Africa and West
West
Africa.
Africa.
Like I sometimes I go to functions or to potluck where there are West African people, and I'm like, I've never had any of this food. I don't know this. What is that? And I have to. And but I think that for many people the perspective is we are all the same. We all eat the same. We all speak the same. We have the same culture. And I know it's the same as well for people from India. Like people who know, if you know someone from India, they will tell you that the North and the South are not
Very
the best
different.
friends. They're very different. They have a very different culture. And on top of that, on top of the anything that the geography, like let's say if you take two-person from Comoros moving to Canada, well, they might not have the same experience if they are not from the same social class, if they don't have the same education. Um, all of these showing that we're just not a monolith at all. We just have different experiences, and I wish that people would see us a little bit more are individual humans with their specific perspective than people coming from that country and they're all the same.
Yeah, it's tiring. Do you have any thoughts on how you think we can drive that conversation? Because I think about it a lot. It's like, how do you even start to help people see those differences? Any thoughts on that?
It's kind of difficult. I think one of the way, obviously, would be to ask people to go to community events, just so they can see, they can experience a culture, two, see many people from that same culture and realize, oh, they're not all the same. Like some people are, I don't know, they're just not all the same. The other thing, I guess read. And I'm saying that because like there's that book that I'm presenting right soon on CBC Canada Reads, and that there's that book called Dandelion where I actually talk about how that book actually talks about how different immigrants have different experiences depending on their country, depending on their social status. Yeah, but apart from that, it's difficult. I think people just need more exposure to other cultures.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm going to find that book that down the line, honestly, because we talked about it on the pre-show. You talk about it now again. Um, I want to talk about your immigration journey. I want to go back, but I think we'll end with that. But I think the thing I want to explore with you is so if you think about your identity, like who are you right now? Like, I mean, who do you
Uh,
think
that,
you are?
okay, that's something I struggled with for a long time. Like, who am I? Um, and it keeps changing, I find. And it changes depending on my age and where I am. Like, for example, in France, I tended to say, oh, I'm French, because French society doesn't like people who are from outside. So they always tell you you have to be French, and that's the only thing that you are, and that's it. But then when I moved to Canada, I realized that how I can hear actually people let you be who you want to be to a certain extent, okay? Let you be to who you want to be, and it's okay to say I'm Comorian French. So that's what I would say in the first years here. I would be like, oh, I'm French Comorian. Um, but now I've been here for so long and I became a citizen of Canada, and I realized that I'm doing things that Canadian do and without even noticing, like saying sorry all the time for no reason. And I'm like, no, actually, I think I am French, I am Comorian, I am Canadian, and I know that sometimes people ask you to choose, like, what are you, which one are you out of the three? I think I'm all of them at the same time, and it depends on what I'm doing, and there are things that I like from one culture or from another.
Yeah. Because you remind me of an episode that just went live with a lady called Maro Rose Yemba. She's Zimbabwean Canadian. And she talks about how heritage is the thing. So like your heritage, you have Comorian heritage, French heritage, and now you have Canadian heritage because you've lived here for 10 years. And so whether you've built that part of you and your identity at each point in time is kind of morphing based off the context and what is feeding off from the heritage you have. So that's what's showing up, and I like that thing you called about how the world always wants us to stake a claim. But what if the claim is really just dependent on the context? Like that kind of thing. Because
Yes.
it was always like, oh, decide. But like, why should I decide? Because really, if you went to Comoros now, even if you're not fully Comoros, and they will know you're not, but there's a part of you that will resonate with what's happening in that place because whether we want to accept it or not, living with your parents for a while meant that they left a part of themselves in you because they raised you. Now you spend time in Canada, so so it's such an interesting conversation to always have, because I think some people always want to kind of hold on to a pillar, and then they find out at some point that they are dealing with what I call that existential question, like, okay, who am I? Because I'm holding on to the Canadian side of myself, but my French side keeps calling me. It's because it's there. You can't, you can't scrape it out.
Yeah, I cannot distract it out of me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I cannot distract it out of me, and it's um because sometimes if I don't speak, like, how can I say that? Like sometimes people see me and they know that I have Comorian heritage, and they want me to talk solely only about the Comorian heritage, and I'm like, but I was born in Paris, I was born in France. My first 30 years I was there. That's the I actually know Paris way more, France way more than Comoros. I like why are you so stubborn about Comoros, and you're like, this is your place, this is your place. And I'm like, yes, it is, but can we talk about Paris? Can I talk about this part of myself, because that's also part of me?
I would actually almost even argue that you're actually more Parisian than Comorian, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
because your Comorian heritage is really just I don't know what the term is. It came to my head, but it's the term of where it's like diffusion in science, literally, where whatever heritage you have from Comoros is either diffusion or osmosis, because your parents, you lived with your
Hmm.
parents, and then that's just what you picked. But in terms of what's the overriding heritage and identity that will show up most of the time before you move to Canada, it's probably more Parisian, like than you know.
It's more Parisian, and it's not that I'm ashamed or I'm not proud of my
Oh
Comorian
yeah.
heritage, because sometimes people think that. But like you said, the only experience that I had from Comoros are my parents, which is very limited. So
Mhm.
it's their experience in their village,
Yes.
or when I would go there on vacation.
Yeah.
And I used to be hurt when people told me, "Oh, you're not Comorian, you're not." I used to be so hurt, but now I understand. Like if I had kids here,
They're not
like
Parisians.
they're not Parisians. They're not. They don't know what it's like to grow up there. They don't know the culture. They will learn a few things through me, uh, but that's it. So it's interesting.
It's like language. It's like language. It's like, how they say, and I've had people on the pod who say, so they're about to move to America, for example. So they go learn English in a class setting. They spend 2-3 weeks to learn English. They think they know English. Then they land in America. And then someone says, hello, so how you doing? What's going on? They're like, oh, I don't know. They're like, sorry, you said what? I mean, I have an episode of a lady who says that she walked into a store. She was serving, and they were talking around her for like 20 minutes. She didn't know what anyone was saying. They were talking too fast. They were using words she couldn't, like. It was like, how do you use this? But she had spent 3 weeks learning the language. And I think culture is like that too when you're learning from your parents. Is that you don't even understand it. You just know it at some level. But then when you see it in action, you don't even pick up the things that triggers that particular cultural expression, because you haven't lived it. So it is strange when people do that. Because I understand when people say, "Oh, you're this." I'm like, or someone's talking about my kid, like, "Oh, because my second kid was born here," and it's like,
Mm.
"Well, he's going to be Nigerian." I'm like, "Yeah, he's going to be Nigerian Canadian," but the truth is that he's going to be more Canadian than I actually say. My kids are Canadian Nigerians. I am Nigerian Canadian, so I'm more Nigerian
Mm.
than them, but they're more Canadian than me. And so for me, that's that cultural thing. That's really who I am. So I'm Nigerian, then Canadian. For them, they're Canadians first, then they're Nigerian because, oh, daddy is Nigerian, daddy behaves like a Nigerian. So they'll think I'm weird, to be honest. 'Cause like I'll do things. They'll be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you you know, like, what are you actually doing? And my kid, my 8-year-old does that. And someone's like, Daddy, no, that's not how to pronounce that. I'm like, yeah.
But and even it's so true because even if you've been here for so long, like even for me after 10 years, sometimes I do things the way French people do. Like I will start complaining in front of everybody and and if you do that in front of Canadians, they're like, what is he complaining about? Why is he so loud? Why is he I'll be like, oh shoot, okay, I'm gonna stop talking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think to round up, I want to kind of talk a bit about so I find your story interesting in the sense that PhD in neuroscience and stuff, and then you come here and then you decide to do pastry work. Like, tell me, like, what were you thinking about when you did that? Like, because that's a massive switch. Like, it's like they aren't related at all.
It's it, what I was thinking about is that I was not really thinking. I just moved here from Paris, and I started missing some parts of the culture. And I
Ah,
started realizing how French I was, how Parisian I was, and I wanted to eat croissants. I wanted to eat French cake, French dessert, patisserie, and in Calgary there's not so many. So that's why I decided to bake them, to learn how to do this by myself. And it's only after a few years, after like 5, 6 years, that I decided to start a business. But just going back to, um, I think that ties well with the different parts of a person and their different identities and cultures, because my grandmother she was a vanilla farmer. So
oh,
because she was a vanilla farmer and vanilla is really used in French pastry.
yeah.
So for me, when I'm baking and every time I'm using vanilla, I'm thinking of Comoros. I'm thinking of my grandmother. I'm thinking of her sorting the vanilla pods. But I'm also thinking of Paris. I'm thinking of the bakeries. I'm thinking of all of this, right? So actually, like pastry for me, it's kind of a reminder of both. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to change careers, just because it's was always a reminder of who I am as I'm baking. And I started to love it more than science. I still love science, but I started to love it more than science. So that's why I went head on there.
That's so beautiful, actually. It reminds me about the thing. I think we talked about it about the series you're working on, but you know how the idea that food is identity, like food is identity. We gloss over it, but like food is identity, is a memory bank. It carries a ton of things, all the flavors, everything. Reminds us of
Mm,
home, tells us of who we are, reminds us of things that we've forgotten, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, and when you talk to immigrants, even if you talk sometimes to second, third generation, what I always find interesting is that very often you will see that things disappear, like the language disappear, the religion disappear, some of the customs and tradition disappear. But the thing that lasts the most, the longest time, is food. Like
Interesting.
I've met so many people who will tell me, oh, my grandmother was Portuguese. I don't speak the language. I've never been there, but I know how to make this Portuguese bread because that was her recipe. And and
Dang.
and I find it so interesting that food carries culture across generations, across continents sometimes.
Gosh, like that is. So, I've never thought about it that way, but it absolutely makes sense considering how we pass on spices and stuff all the way down recipes. You know how they talk about all these restaurants in Italy where the starter dough for their pizza has probably been around for like 100 years.
Yes.
I'm like, how are you all keeping that alive?
Because people just want to keep a part of their heritage, of their family, of their identity all the time, and just a little bit of the time. And food is when you have good food, like it just evokes some emotion that stay with you, and it nourishes you at the same time, of course. So I think that's why food is always such a big part of the immigrant journey. And if you go, you will always see. So it's always funny because my parents, when they were moving from, when they were going on vacation to Comoros and coming back to Paris, they were always bringing with them some Comorian food, some mangoes, some things like that, in their bags. Whereas me, when I go back from Paris to Canada, there's always some cheese, some butter, something like that, because you want to you want to remember how food is like in your country.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to end this. We're talking about food. Well, thank you so much, Saeed. Like, this was really good talking to you about all this. God, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
That point on food is something to think about. But yeah, that thing he said about where food is the thing that lasts the longest within generations. Like, it's something to think about. But again, thanks so much for getting to this point of the pod. If you know someone I should talk to, please send them my way. If you know someone that will find this useful, please send to them. As always, please like, share, subscribe, comment. We're on YouTube and Substack. We're on anywhere you get your podcast. You find us there. Thank you so much and have a good day.